Hey, yo, welcome to Learn with Jade, my little corner of the internet for anyone looking to eat something other than copy pasta. I'm Jade Manley, and today we're going to build the GPT-3 chatbot that you can text whenever you need life advice. The best part is we're going to do it in less than 50 lines of code, give or take. Now, this is a video tutorial, but if you want to go more in depth, you can find my blog tutorial in the description. All right, our tech stack today, we're going to be building this in Python using the Flask Framework. We'll be writing our code in VS Code Editor. We'll use the GitHub desktop app to host our repo. We'll be using an API key from OpenAI to access GPT-3. And we'll be signing up for Twilio to handling our messaging service. Finally, we'll use Render to run our chatbot in the cloud. So without further ado, bon appetit. First things first, we're going to want to create a new project folder. We'll call ours GPT-3 JBot. We're going to change into the GPT-3 JBot directory we just created with the CD, and we're going to create a virtual environment. You'll see around the internet most people use Vemb as the virtual environment folder, but feel free to name it whatever you want. We are going to say Python 3 because I have some issues on the new Mac Mini. And after the command completes, we'll have a subdirectory within our GPT-3 JBot folder called Vemb, and what we basically need to do is activate our virtual environment with the following command. We'll know our environment is activated whenever you see that Vemb ahead of our folder. Great. Inside of our virtual environment, we need to install all of our necessary packages using pip. So we're going to pip install, and basically what we need is OpenAI, we need Twilio, we need Flask, and we need Python.env. So hit enter and let's get all these going. Okay, open the GitHub desktop app and we're going to create a new repository. All right, and before we hit create repo, we want to make sure that we add a Python gitignore file. And let's initialize it using a readme. And this is our chatbot app. And again, adding the gitignore file will prevent us from uploading our virtual environment as well as our .env file that contains our super secret API access token, which we'll get to. So let's go ahead and create the repository. Awesome, and then let's open it in Visual Studio Code. Now, first thing we're going to do is create that .env file. And within this, we're going to be exporting our OpenAI API key. We're going to set it equal to our API access key. All right, so we need an API key from OpenAI to actually build our app. I just tweeted at Greg Brockman, who was kind enough to hand out beta invites. Otherwise, you can apply on their site. I'm not exactly sure how long it takes to get accepted, but good luck. You can also just use my key. Psych, I'm going to regenerate it by the time I hit publish on this blog post, but if I forget, then you're in luck. So once we have it, let's go back to Visual Studio Code, and we're going to drop it in here and hit save. Now that we've got the skeleton for our project, it's time to give it a brain. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going over exactly what GPT-3 is or how it works, partially because I myself don't truly understand it, but mostly because there's a ton out there on the internet that you can read. I'll link some helpful resources in the description. OpenAI gives us a playground where we can really mess around with GPT-3. Some of the key things to keep in mind are over here on the right-hand side. The engine API, OpenAI has 4 engines to choose from. This is really the black box of GPT-3, but we're going to use DaVinci because that's supposedly one of the best ones. Response length controls how much text is generated. Think character count here for all you Microsoft Word or Google Doc users. Temperature. This setting controls the randomness of the generated text. The higher the temperature, the crazier it spits out. Top P. This parameter also has some control over the randomness and creativity of the text generated. For some reason, it's used less than the temperature, so let's stick mostly to temperature. The frequency penalty works by lowering the chances of a word being selected again the more times the word has already been used. the frequency penalty does not consider how frequently a word has been used, but just if the word exists in the text. Per Twilio Ultimate Guide, the difference between these two is the frequency penalty you can think of as a way to prevent word repetitions, and the presence penalty is a way to prevent topic repetitions. The best of, don't need it, don't worry about it. The stop sequence helps to prevent GPT-3 from cutting off mid-sentence. The start text automatically appends after the user's input. This will happen before sending a request to GPT-3, which will come in handy when we're building our bot. The restart text is the text to append after the model's generation to continue the pattern structure. In other words, it helps so we don't need to type the prefix all the time. Now we pulled from the Q&A examples here, and I slightly modified it. But let's hit submit and see what our chatbot's response is. So here we are. I've kind of prompted the question and answer of a person and the bot Jabe. I gave it a little bit of a brain beforehand, saying he was mentored by Elon Musk, loves Twitter, loves selling merchandise, loves memes and YouTube. We'll see what happens here. Let's go ahead and submit. And we see here GPT-3 spits out something totally random. I'd love to help you, but I'm just a bot. If you want to see my personal tweets, just search for Jamie Dobrik, also created by the amazing David Dobrik. Sorry, David, don't sue me. No idea who Jamie Dobrik is, but it seems GPT-3 is smart enough to pick up this @ symbol. Great. Now we're ready to export our presets to Python. What you're going to see here is export code. Go ahead and copy what we have. And let's head back over to Visual Studio Code. All right, back in VS Code, let's create a new file. We'll call it jabebot.py. And what we're going to do is import the necessary packages. We're going to get our OpenAI key using the .m package we installed earlier. So what we have to do here is load.m and this open.api key. And we're going to use os.getm, and we're going to be getting our OpenAI key, which again is in our .m file, OpenAI key. And actually over here we have an OpenAI API key, so it's our OpenAI API key. Set this completion equal to OpenAI.completion. And then let's paste what we copied over from our exported playground. So we have our start sequence, our restart sequence, and the last thing we want to do is let's take out our session prompt and let's save it into its own variable. And we can get rid of this comma and this unnecessary quotation. And we'll keep just the prompt open for now as we're going to add something in. And what we're going to do now is we're actually going to take this response part here and we're going to put it within a function, the ask function, that's going to take in a question. So let's say define ask, which takes in a question. It also is going to take in a chat log, which will set equal to none to start. Great. All of these, again, were pasted from the exported code. And we're going to add in a prompt text variable at the top here. And we'll set the prompt equal to the prompt text. All right, and within this ask, the finishing touches are to access the actual text nested within the request body. And we can get that by going into our response, which is going to look like this JSON blurb where we got to go into choices, take the first row, and then we want to access this text, which again is coming from the OpenAI API call. And every good Python function needs a good return statement. So let's return the story, but let's make sure we get that in a string format. And lastly, where the chat log comes in is we're basically creating another function, append interaction to chat log, that will help our bot to remember. Now it's time to use our Flask framework. So we're going to create a new file, app.py, and copy pasta in this code. Okay, so what's happening here? To empower our bot to respond in real time via the Twilio SMS API, we need to use a webhook. And the webhook is what will tell Twilio there is an incoming message. We're going to format it using Flask. So this is the basic Flask formatting where our endpoint is going to be /jbot. It's going to be a post request, which means we're going to be including some information. And really within here, we're just going to use our chat log, which is kind of getting the chat log. We have our answer, which is using the ask function to get an incoming message. And then we are going to append back to that chat log to update it. And then really getting that down into just a message that's going to be passed back and forth via text through the webhook to our bot and back to our phone. We'll configure Twilio to let it know about our Flask endpoint, and then it can start receiving incoming text messages, which we're routing in here again to the GPT-3 API, and eventually sending it back via Twilio. Now, if you named anything different, just pay attention to whatever you swapped out. This is just the Jabe function call, but the endpoint is really what's going to be important. Keep in mind, these are all of the necessary modules to import coming from both Twilio, and we're actually importing from our JBot file the ask and the append interaction to chat log function. So from here, we're going to sprinkle on some Twilio messaging magic, and we're really just returning a string that we'll eventually use to pass this back to our chatbot. The final few parts of this tutorial are going to jump around a bit, but it will make sense at the end, so great job keeping up so far. Let's save and head back to our GitHub repo. Now, since this was a solo project and a rather small one, we've been on the main branch, and what we want to do now is upload all of our profiles to the GitHub directory. And so we'll name it GPT-3JBot, just our chatbot app, not a part of an organization. We're going to keep it private because Render will still be able to access even our private repo. Go ahead and publish the repository. Thinking. Looks like we got to commit first. So first commit code to set up our GPT-3 chatbot. We'll commit it. And then let's push it to origin. And now if we go back to GitHub, let's hit refresh, we'll see we have our app script, our JBot script, and none of the other .env or vem folders have been uploaded because those were in our git ignore. This is where a lot of folks will instruct you to use AWS or even Heroku, which I've heard has made a lot of improvements. We're going to use Render because I found it super easy. It's somewhat costly, but easy. So first thing you need to do is sign up for a free Render account. We're going to log into ours. At the top of the page, click New, and select a web service. And we're going to select the one that we just created here. And Render has solid documentation for how to deploy a Flask app. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to give it a name, GPT-3 chatbot. It's going to be Python 3. Choose kind of the nearest area to you. It's going to be on our main branch. And then the build command will be pip install requirements. Okay, so to do this, we are going to head back to our terminal. And you'll notice that the build is going to pull from our requirements file. But what we haven't done yet is actually saved our requirements file. So let's actually do pip freeze requirements.txt. And we're going to run that. And now, if we were to go to our VS Code, you'll see we have a requirements.txt file that has everything we need for the build to run our chatbot. So let's head back over to Render. And here you'll see we will install with this pip install-r our requirements.txt. And what we want to call it here is Gunicorn app because we had our Flask name was the app, and we'll choose the $7 a month, which is our current, and go ahead and create the web service. You'll see it's cloning in from our GitHub. It's checking out the commit and it's downloading the cache. Looks like the build failed. Let's go to our GitHub desktop. And I think we're going to have to created requirements, added requirements.txt. Let's push this to origin. Lovely, let's go back to render and let's try and manually deploy again. And this time, hopefully it works because we actually have our requirements in our GitHub repo. Downloading, running. Looks like we've made it farther than we did last time. And build was successful. Great. Let's head over to Twilio. Okay, why don't you head on over to Twilio. Step 1, sign up for Twilio. Step 2, buy a phone number. Step 3, add a small balance to your number. Once you've completed those steps, meet me here on the active numbers dashboard. And what we're going to do is we're going to configure Twilio messaging to use a webhook. And that webhook, really what we're going to do is actually go to render and get this URL. And we're going to go ahead and paste it here. And the one thing to remember, if we go back to VS Code in our Flask app, we have this endpoint/jbot. So if we go back to our render URL, we got to add our jbot because that's what we're going to be posting the message to through Flask. And again, the HTTP post. Great. Let's go ahead and save this. And now what we're ready to do is fire up our phone and let's send a text to our bot. And there you have it, a working GPT-3 chatbot. Feel free to share your bot text number, Twilio text number with friends and have them send funny screen grabs of any conversations they have with your JBot. Thanks for joining me on this journey tutorial, and I look forward to seeing you again in the near future. This is Jabe, signing off.